India Today TV, along with 70 other news channels, is a proud member of the News Broadcasters Association since 2007. We strictly follow the code of ethics and guidelines issued by NBSA. Beware of unregulated channels.
Welcome on board the Newstrack. I'm Rahul Kanwal. Will the Narcotics Control Bureau be able to prove drug consumption charges against Deepika and company, or will this prove to be one mega fishing expedition in the end? Is Bollywood being singled out, or will this probe ultimately reach the international drug syndicate that pumps drugs into Mumbai, into Bollywood and across the country? Sushant Singh Rajput family is losing faith in the CBI's probe. The family lawyer did a big press conference alleging that the Narcotics Control Bureau was indulging in a fashion parade of Bollywood stars, that this was derailing the entire focus on Sushant Singh Rajput, and that these charges will be impossible to prove because drug consumption under the Narcotics Act is very difficult to convict. We'd look at that in great detail and tell you all that happened in the NCB probe today. Tomorrow is when Bollywood's top female star Deepika Padukone will be appearing before the Narcotics Control Bureau. She will be brought face to face with her manager Karishma, who was questioned for nearly 7 hours today. Sources tell India Today that Karishma has admitted to the 2017 drug chat with Deepika, where the actor sought mal and hash, but has been evasive on procuring narcotics for the superstar. Here is what to expect tomorrow.
Saturday is D-Day for Deepika Padukone, who returned to Mumbai from Goa Thursday night to face NCB's grilling. The actor looked composed as she landed in Mumbai. She was accompanied by her husband Ranbir Singh. Deepika's WhatsApp chats with her manager Karishma Prakash in October 2017 allegedly shows her seeking mal and specifically hash.
They are going to ask her whether Deepika consumed drugs, whether she was procuring drugs, who was the person supplying drugs to her, who all were helping her procure these drugs. Was she giving these drugs to some other person, or was she buying it, procuring it for herself or self-consumption?
Deepika, daughter of sporting legend Prakash Padukone, is known for taking challenging roles, speaking her mind and at times taking a political stand. Today, the actor, who had spoken out her struggles with depression, is facing one of the biggest challenges of her life. With inputs from Divyesh Singh and Munish Pandey in Mumbai, Bureau Report, India Today.
In the meanwhile, sources in the Narcotics Control Bureau have told India Today that Karan Johar's party from 2019, where a whole clutch of Bollywood stars can be seen at his residence, is also being looked at. Now, remember, Akali leader Manjinder Singh Sirsa and many others had asked for a probe into that video. The Narcotics Control Bureau is investigating members of Dharma Production, which is Karan Johar's company, and they have revealed information that the NCB says it would like to ask Karan Johar about. Here's the story.
This party video posted by Karan Johar in 2019 is now under the scanner of the Narcotics Control Bureau. In the video, top Bollywood stars from Deepika Padukone to Ranbir Kapoor, Vicky Kaushal to Shahid Kapoor can all be seen posing as Karan films them on his phone camera. When the video was posted on 30th July 2019, it created controversy after Akali leader Manjinder Singh Sirsa alleged that drugs were being consumed at the party and that everyone in the video looked allegedly high. Over a year later, this drug charge has come back to haunt Karan Johar and his gang of A-list friends, with the Narcotics Bureau likely to probe the July 2019 party. Sources have told India Today that the NCB suspects that drugs, especially cocaine, was being consumed at the party. All those present in the video, Deepika Padukone, filmmaker Shakun Batra, Malaika Arora, Arjun Kapoor, Shahid Kapoor, Rohit Dhawan, Varun Dhawan, Zoya Akhtar, Vicky Kaushal, Ayan Mukherjee, Natasha Dalal, Ranbir Kapoor, Pooja Shetty Deora, and Meera Rajput Kapoor, also on the NCB's radar. Akali leader Manjinder Sirsa in fact now claims that Karan Johar himself is likely to be summoned by the Narcotics Bureau.
ये नशे कर रहे थे, नशे से ग्रस्त लोग हैं, समाज को खराब करने का काम करते हैं और इन नशेड़ियों की जगह जेल है, समाज नहीं.
Soon after the drug allegations on the party video, India Today questioned both Karan Johar and Vicky Kaushal about the same, and both denied all charges.
Would I be stupid in bright lights to put out a video of a group of friends if there was a consumption of any medical substance? And apparently if a group of Bollywood is in a room, then you're obviously doing drugs. That is the ridiculousness of what happened as a result of that video.
I guess that scratch of the nose, it's a very normal thing. I didn't know that it's only got one meaning to it. That if you scratch your nose, it's got something to do with drugs only.
But trouble only seems to be mounting for Karan Johar. On Friday morning, an executive producer with his company Dharma Productions, Kshitij Prasad's house was raided and small quantity of marijuana was recovered. His name came up during interrogation of an arrested drug peddler. Sources from the NCB say that Prasad has been in constant touch with the peddler and that Prasad procured drugs from him on multiple occasions. Another former employee of Dharma Productions has also been grilled by the NCB. Anubhav Chopra currently works with Roy Kapoor Films and is close friends with Kshitij. As many as 50 actors, producers and directors are on NCB's radar. Will more top stars be named as the Bollywood drug trail is being probed? Bureau Report, India Today.
To get a full sense of what happened in the investigation today, I want to go across to Munish Pandey, who tracks the Narcotics Control Bureau for India Today. Munish, you had executives from Dharma Productions coming before the NCB today. You also had Rakul Preet before the NCB. Give our viewers a full sense of what we know about the questioning with these stars.
Well, Rahul, Kshitij is still being questioned, and I'll request my camera person Prakash to show you the visuals of the same building. This is the NCB office where Kshitij is being grilled from last 6 to 7 hours. Also, we have been given to understand is that this morning when he landed from Delhi in Mumbai, he was apprehended by the Narcotics Control Bureau officials, and then he was taken to his Warsaw residence and a search operation was conducted. Small quantity of marijuana has been recovered from Kshitij and he is still being questioned. His name appeared before the NCB after questioning the drug peddlers. Still there is no confirmation whether he will be arrested or not, but NCB claims that the questioning is still going on. The second important part of the day was when Rakul Preet Singh appeared before the Narcotics Control Bureau for questioning. During the questioning, he claims that the conversation between Riya and Rakul was regarding a parcel, and that parcel was nothing but drugs. So she has claimed that this drug was only for Riya Chakravarti, but Riya in her statement had said that Rakul Preet Singh was also consuming drugs. So now, as of now, she has claimed that Riya Chakravarti was consuming drugs, and the drug which she has mentioned in the chat was for Riya Chakravarti. Now NCB claims that the same statement of Rakul Preet Singh will be submitted before the court, and the court will take the next step whether action should be taken against her or not. Karishma, the other person who is connected to Deepika Padukone, manager of Con Talent Management Company, she was grilled for almost 6 to 7 hours by the Narcotics Control Bureau. What's important by Karishma, which she told the Narcotics Control Bureau, is that part one, she accepted that she did had a WhatsApp conversation with Deepika Padukone. She accepted that the drug chats were with Deepika Padukone, but also when she was asked whether she gave drugs to Deepika Padukone or not, there is no clarity given by Karishma at this point of time. So tomorrow it is going to be very important because Karishma has been asked by NCB to appear once again, and it's less than 15 hours when Deepika Padukone has to appear before the Narcotics Control Bureau, and it is likely that both will be made to sit together and they will be confronted with each other, because what NCB claims that apart from one chat, they also have many chats of Deepika Padukone. Whether she accepts that the drugs were for her, she will be in trouble, and if she accepts that these drugs were not for her but for someone else, then also it is going to be trouble for Deepika Padukone. So all the eyes are for tomorrow.
So in the midst of all of this, the NCB has now come in for criticism from a highly unlikely quarter. The family lawyer of Sushant Singh Rajput, Vikas Singh, held a press conference a short while before now where he alleged that the NCB was carrying out what he called a fashion parade of Bollywood stars. He said that this was derailing the original probe into the death of Sushant Singh Rajput, that it will be impossible to convict these stars for consumption because under the Narcotics Act, that is a very, very difficult thing to actually prove in a court of law, and that this was just a big charade, and that the family was very disappointed with the manner in which this probe was getting derailed. Here is Vikas Singh.
देखिए, नॉर्मल सीबीआई इतने बड़े मामले में नॉर्मली प्रेस स्टेटमेंट देती है। आज तक एक भी प्रेस स्टेटमेंट सीबीआई की तरफ से नहीं आया है, जो कि बहुत अजीब है। इतने बड़े मामले में जहां पूरा देश जानना चाह रहा है कि इस केस में क्या हो रहा है, आज तक सीबीआई की तरफ से कोई प्रेस स्टेटमेंट नहीं आया। ये खुद एक गंभीर बात है, और आज के दिन में क्या उन्होंने पाया है, नहीं पाया है, उसके बारे में खुलासा करें। परिवार को भी तो पता चले कि क्या नहीं पाया है, तो अगर हमको कुछ एक्शन लेना तो हम एक्शन लेंगे, परिवार की तरफ से हम कोर्ट को मूव करेंगे। लेकिन इस तरह से जो मामला लटका हुआ है, इसमें ना तो हम कुछ कर पा रहे हैं, ना सीबीआई आगे कुछ मामले को आगे बढ़ा रही है। और दूसरी तरफ ये नारकोटिक्स कंट्रोल ब्यूरो का बड़े बड़े फिल्म स्टार को बुला करके एक उनसे वो करने का मेरे को तो कोई समझ में नहीं था औचित्य। कोई उसमें कोई इनका कोई ड्रग ट्रेड में लोगों का इन्वॉल्वमेंट नहीं है, कोई लोगों का सिंडिकेट को फाइनेंस करने का केस नहीं है। इन लोगों का अगर कोई बहुत से बहुत केस होगा तो अच्छा, अक्यूज्ड के कहने से किसी का नाम अगर जोड़ा नहीं जा सकता है इतने आसानी से। अक्यूज तो 10 आदमी को बदनाम करना चाहेगी। इस केस में भी अक्यूज ने कहा है कि सुशांत सिंह के लिए ड्रग्स खरीदती थी। अब सुशांत सिंह के मर्जी से खरीदती थी, सुशांत सिंह को मर्जी से देती थी, या सुशांत सिंह के पानी में या उनके चाय में या कॉफी में चुपके से मिला के देती थी, ये सुशांत तुम रहे नहीं जो बता पाएंगे। तो इसलिए अक्यूज तो कुछ भी बोल दे, उस अक्यूज के बोलने को तो कोर्ट नहीं मान सकता, ना उसको प्रोसिक्यूशन को मानना चाहिए। तो इसलिए मेरे हिसाब से जो दिशा जा रही है इस इन्वेस्टिगेशन की, वो दिशा जरा घबराने वाली है परिवार के लिए। और ये लग रहा है कहीं ना कहीं एक ये फीलिंग आ रही है कि ये मामला जो है अंजाम तक जल्दी नहीं जा रहा है, और ये गंभीर बात है।
So will the Narcotics Control Bureau be able to ultimately prove the charges of drug consumption against these Bollywood stars, or will this turn out to be a mega fishing expedition which leads to the stars being defamed but doesn't ultimately result in a conviction? Or how strong is the case so far, and where is the probe going? Joining us for perspective on this broadcast, I want to welcome first Varun Singh. He is part of the team of lawyers for Sushant Singh Rajput's family. We've got B.V. Kumar, former chief of the Narcotics Control Bureau. We've got Shantanu Sen, former joint director of the Central Bureau of Investigation, whose delay is now being questioned as well. You've got Umakant Mishra, former assistant director of the Narcotics Control Bureau. I want Varun Singh to lay out first the family's angst with the manner in which the CBI probe is going, why you're so disappointed with what the Narcotics Control Bureau is doing. Why do you think this is a fashion parade? Because the NCB is telling us that all of this is coming out of the ED probe that was transferred to them, which was an original investigation into whether Riya Chakravarti stole 15 crore rupees from SSR's account.
Well, you're right. In terms of the connection which was formed initially to make out a case for the NCB, there is no doubt that it is coming out of the same FIR which was initially filed by us. But interestingly, if I may quote, there is a tweet exchanged by one of your senior journalists, and Ramchandra Guha, who's also known to be a historian, and he's quoted about this very summon and the exchange of exchange is qua the fact that how this is timed in a manner where there's a large-scale protest of farmers. So in 1975 also apparently when there was a large-scale protest, the DD News was asked to make out a show the movie Bobby, which is actually.
So what's your point, Varun? What's the point that you're trying to make?
The point I'm trying to make is that this kind of fishing inquiry is actually not going to help any manner in our case.
No, but you're the ones who wanted. No, 1 second. It's the Sushant Singh Rajput family, Varun, that wanted the CBI to probe this case. Now you've got the CBI probing this case. You can't suddenly turn around and say that I don't like what the CBI is doing. First, you didn't like what the Mumbai police is saying and doing in their investigation. Now you don't like what the CBI is doing. How does that make sense?
I don't understand how you're trying to put these words in my mouth. All I've tried to say so far is that the investigation has not come to any stage and firstly, what we were referring earlier was about NCB and CBI. All that has been said in the press conference or even now is that it has not been given any kind of indication as to how far the case has gone. And that's all we are apprehensive about.
No, I heard Vikas Singh's press conference. He said that this is a fashion parade, that the CBI's probe is getting derailed, that the family is mighty disappointed with the way the CBI is going. Surely, the family of Sushant Singh Rajput can't dictate to the CBI how they should do their job.
Neither we are saying so, and this is not the CBI. And sir, I'm sure you are aware that right now what you are talking about is the investigation by the NCB into alleged consumption or selling of drugs by some actors, which according to us is in no manner going to help in our case, in which the CBI is to take the front step in terms of the FIR, in terms of the judgment which was issued by Supreme Court. So all we are trying to say is that we are apprehensive about that, and we want the case to move further rather than digressing on issues which are not really.
So you're calling this a digression. You're saying that nothing much is coming from this. I also want to welcome Dilip Cherian, well-known image consultant, joining us now on this broadcast. Let me go across to Shantanu Sen, because you've now got the Sushant Singh Rajput family, which wanted the CBI to probe this case. And the NCB probe that started now is an outcome of that original investigation, saying that the CBI is not doing its job properly, it's taking too much time, it's not updating us. The CBI team and the AIMS team has been back from Mumbai for more than a week, they haven't met. What do you think is going on, Mr. Shantanu Sen? How do you respond to the criticism leveled against the CBI? Now the family which wanted the CBI involved suddenly doesn't think the CBI is doing a good job because you're not saying what they want you to say.
The CBI doesn't share its leads, its findings with anybody but the court. And that too when CBI arrests somebody. Since CBI is not arrested anybody, CBI is also not bound to give any reports to the court. As far as the complainants are concerned, CBI is in touch with them, I'm sure, because they filed the complaint. CBI must be questioning them. But CBI at this stage will get information from them and will share that information which they may throw some light on. CBI will not give its finding. That is not the way the CBI
No,
functions.
absolutely, because it almost seems, Varun, that you expect the CBI to give you a ball-by-ball commentary or to constantly leak to you what happened, who they interrogated. Just because the probe's not going in the direction that you want, just because Riya Chakravarti is not being hung on a town square, you're not satisfied with the way the CBI probe is going, Varun?
I don't see how, sir, you're trying to. In fact, it's quite unfortunate that you're trying to put these kind of words in my mouth by saying that.
I'm not putting any word in your mouth. I'm asking you a question.
About the accused. We have not said. If you've noticed, we have not even once come on in any manner to suggest anything about the accused. All we are trying to say is that so far it is a highly watched, looked after case where everybody seems to be interested. It has gone on for a few months. Right now, the CBI has, as rightly put out by sir, they're not duty bound to share any information with us. But the fact that it has only made us
in the last press conference that happened a short while before now, Vikas Singh said that he expected press statements to be put out by the CBI explaining what they've done in the case so far. And that's not the way the CBI behaves. That's not the way any proper investigating agency is supposed to behave. And thank God the CBI is not behaving like that, Varun.
No. But look at you right now. At one point of time, you're saying you're reporting ball by ball of what is happening before the NCB, and the other
That
hand,
doesn't condone or make acceptable what the NCB is doing.
No, you yourself are throwing light upon it. You're actually giving ball by ball commentary of everything.
I'm doing my job. I'm doing my job. I'm reporting on the case. The CBI ought to do its job, Varun.
So that's all even we are trying to suggest. We've not said anything over and above that.
Okay, so Varun's objection, Shantanu Sen, is that you aren't leaking to him enough. He doesn't know enough about what the CBI has done. The probe isn't necessarily going the way they want, and therefore they're unhappy with that. Shantanu Sen.
I don't think
I remember Vikas Singh saying that the first thing the CBI should do is to arrest Riya.
Correct.
I remember him saying that on your channel or some other channel.
Yes, he said it here.
And that has not been done. That may make him unhappy. But I'm afraid the CBI cannot arrest anybody unless it has found something very important which demands an arrest. Obviously, CBI has not found anything. If CBI arrests somebody within 24 hours, he has to be produced, he has to be produced before the court. And the court will ask
so the family of Sushant Singh Rajput also asked why the AIMS forensics team and the CBI team hasn't met. It's been a week. They were supposed to meet on Tuesday. That didn't happen. They're saying, Hafta ho gaya, aa gaye, why aren't you doing it? That's the question the family is asking now. Shantanu Sen, how do you respond to that?
They may ask the questions, but they don't get the answers because that is not their right. They have a right to make a complaint. Having made the complaint, they have got the CBI to investigate the case. CBI will investigate and CBI will give a finding, certainly after it has concluded its investigation. But during the investigation, unlike the NCB and others, CBI will not be opening up and letting the media know what it's doing. It should not do it. It should never have done it. And it is not doing it. Thank God for that. What the NCB is doing is a disgrace.
Okay, so you're saying what the NCB is doing is a disgrace. The CBI is actually acting in a more professional fashion, which is where I want to go across to B.V. Kumar and Umakant Mishra. And I'll start with B.V. Kumar first. He's run the Narcotics Control Bureau. The focus on Saturday will be on Deepika Padukone's questioning, Sara Ali Khan and Shraddha Kapoor coming in as well. We heard the family lawyer of Sushant Singh Rajput say what many have said in the past, that it's very difficult for the Narcotics Control Bureau to be able to prove drug consumption. These chats that have been put out in the public domain look damaging, but when you have to use these as prosecutable evidence in a court of law, past court judgments have shown that it's difficult. What's your sense? Will the Narcotics Bureau be able to prove these charges against these Bollywood stars? Mr. B.V. Kumar?
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. I heard with great respect the other participants in the panel. I fully agree with the Joint Director of CBI, Mr. Sen, that no investigating agency worth its salt during the course of investigation revealed what has been ascertained or what has been found out during the course of investigation or while recording the statements. The object is to find out what exactly is the source in the case of Narcotics Control Bureau, what exactly is the source from which the drugs are emanating, particularly at the higher level. I mean, the Narcotics Control Bureau has not been set up to investigate cases against the drug consumers or drug addicts. It has been set up to sort of bust international or interstate.
No, so can I just say, Mr. Kumar, I heard what you'd said the last time you'd come on India Today. So I spoke to one of the very senior officers at the Narcotics Control Bureau, and he says that the Bollywood stars are the ones who are hogging the public limelight because of the nature of their personalities and what they do, and because they're in the public eye. But that's not our focus. We're dealing with drug peddlers. They're being called in for questioning. We're looking at the entire manner in which these drugs are imported into Mumbai and where they come from, the international drug routes. They're all being looked at. And it's just, his explanation was, for what it's worth, and I want to hear what you have to say about it, that the stars are in the public eye because of the fact that they're film stars, but that's not the focus of our probe. Do you buy that, sir?
Yeah, no, in the process, the reputation of a number of individuals, they be film stars or others, has been tarnished. What one information at least I got from the media is that the NCB has been able to trace some drug syndicates located in Amritsar, and they have found out that they have connection in Pakistan, and they have contacted the RCMP in Canada, the DEA in USA, and the National Criminal Intelligence Agency in UK, and the Australian Drug Enforcement Authorities. And they found that about 1,200 kilograms of cocaine have come to India during last year, and out of that, about 300 kgs have landed in Bombay. That should have been the focus of investigation, to find out who are these real persons who have brought these drugs to India, and that to serious drug like a heavy drug like a cocaine, which is more dangerous than any of the soft drugs like ganja. And consumption of ganja up to 1,000 grams is supposed to be a small quantity. It is 20 kgs, which is the large quantity. And in terms of Section 27 of the Act, Narcotics Control NDPS Act, that is supposed to be a minor offense. And though Section 37 clearly says the High Court has no power to grant bail, but the High Court has certainly power to take into circumstances the accused situation, to find out whether they are going to sort of interfere with the future investigation by manipulating or bringing influence over the witnesses. And if that is not so, and if there is no evidence also to show that they are again going to commit certain offences, High Court has every right to release on bail. These are the decisions which have been given by the High Court of Karnataka, High Court of Himachal Pradesh, and some other high courts. So that being so, in the normal course, any of these persons who have consumed drugs or had minimum quantities, they are entitled for bail. The real focus should have been to go up.
So, okay,
and find out.
Let me put that question then to Umakant Mishra, because you've got B.V. Kumar saying that the NCB is approaching this case wrong, that they should be going after the big fish, these last mile consumers of drugs. If they've been consuming small quantity of drug, that's really below the NCB's remit. The NCB needs to be gunning for the international drug cartel. Look at the big picture, not go after Bollywood stars. In fact, the family of Sushant Singh Rajput called this a fashion parade, that this is wrong. How do you respond to what the NCB is doing? Umakant Mishra.
Rahul, first of all, I want to congratulate you for bringing Mr. B.V. Kumar on board. The interesting thing in all this topic, because NCB is in news, for your information, Mr. B.V. Kumar was the father of NCB. He was the first Director General of the NCB who started NCB. So I think he's in a better position to comment. You heard him. So now I will start my argument by asking a question. Rahul, if ED had forwarded some kind of a feedback, some kind of an input to NCB, and NCB would have denied to take up the investigation, then what you would have said? What were the legal consequences? What would have been the media response to it? What would have been the Sushant Singh Rajput's family would have to? What would have been the? As far as the legal consequences is concerned, no organization can refuse any input which shows that an offense has been committed. So NCB could not. I agree with Mr. B.V. Kumar that NCB's mandate was not this. NCB's mandate was much, much bigger. But could NCB...
Okay, let Mr. Kumar respond to that, because the senior officers I spoke to said the same thing. It's not as if... Okay, complete. Okay, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Mishra. Go ahead.
Let me finish, Rahul, please. And I don't agree with the supposition what Mr. Varun Singh or the other people are telling here, that NCB is conducting a fishing expedition. It is only for the single most important thing all this since last 1 month has been achieved. The single most important thing. You see, drug enforcement is based on two: fighting drug abuse and also fighting the supply of the drugs. The single most important thing this last 1 month has achieved is what the government spending thousands of crores would not have achieved. The focus the common man is getting about the abuse of the drug and about its illicit and the harmful effects is coming so much more clearly. I think as far as the fishing expedition is concerned, this single benefit which arose nullifies any other accusations you might be making against.
No, but the NCB's job is not to do PR and advocacy for... One second, sir. but the NCB's job is not to do PR and advocacy
No, no, yeah,
against
I
the
agree.
consumption
There
of
should not
drugs.
been-
Your job is to now prove
Rahul-
this case in a court of law. One second, you made an
Rahul-
important point. I want to put your question to B.V. Kumar, which is what the senior officers I spoke to in the NCB said as well, that we didn't go looking for this case. This case came to us from the Enforcement Directorate. What would have been the message to the public if the Enforcement Directorate asked us to look at this case of drug consumption and the NCB had said, no, we would not do it? Would that have been the right thing to do? That's the question current investigating officers in the NCB are asking, Mr. Kumar.
Yeah, there is a twin objectives of the NDPS Act. One is to suppress drug trafficking and also prevent as far as possible the drug abuse. There's a clear strategy as to what the NCB and the government of India is supposed to, and as well as the state governments are supposed to follow. First thing is to identify places where there is cultivation or manufacture, or places of conversion of the natural drugs, the ganja or opium and things like that into other higher forms of drugs, or then their conversion if factories are being manufacturing, then find the places of storage, and then the place of distribution, and then ultimately to the drug traffickers, drug consumers or addicts. Now then the flow starts upwards. Then the enormous amount of money is generated. Worldwide, I think it's about $320 billion of money is generated. So now that's where the problem comes in, where it is used for financing terrorism or for even what you call subverting the democratic process. That is why both the objectives have to be achieved by the NCB with the
So let me ask you this question, Mr. Kumar, on the basis of what we know so far, and the officers I spoke to said that there is more evidence that they have, which they haven't made public at this moment. Do you believe that the Narcotics Control Bureau will be able to prove drug consumption charges under the NDPS against Deepika Padukone, Sara Ali Khan, Shraddha Kapoor and the others who've been called in for questioning?
See, as of now, they have only evidence of the co-accused. Evidence of the co-accused is not sustainable in law unless it is corroborated by independent evidence. Now here the independent evidence, whatever I could say, is from their mobile phones or for WhatsApp chats or laptops or any other electronic media. And that is required to be proved in terms of the strict conditions imposed under Section 65, capital A and B. And those have to be satisfied because computer evidence can be manipulated, can be changed, and can be sort of erased also. But then the difficulty comes in is, again, the Evidence Act says that the oral statements recorded during the course of investigation are not relevant unless the genuineness of the electronic evidence seized from their mobiles or whatever electronic media, storage media they have. So these are the difficult conditions where the prosecution will be facing. So unless these are proved, the conviction will be difficult. And particularly if they are small quantities, the court is expected to take a lenient approach for the whole thing. And Section 64A of the Act provides for grant of what you call immunity from prosecution and send them to a treatment center. That's how the law is. The whole emphasis is to treat the drug traffickers very strictly and give them very severe punishment. And in the case of second offense, for a prescribed quantity, even death penalty is provided. Preventive detention law is there to put them in prison for 2 years in judicial custody under the Preventive Detention Act. So these are the provisions available. So the aim of the law is not so much to punish the drug consumers rather than rehabilitate them. That is the whole idea of the law.
Okay, so you're basically saying that it's far easier to convict somebody who's caught peddling drugs rather than consuming drugs. It's easily bailable. You could also be sent to a rehabilitation center, and that this is going to be difficult to prove in a court of law, and which is where I want to go across to Dilip Cherian, who's been listening intently to this whole conversation, because multiple lawyers and legal experts, including the family lawyer of Sushant Singh Rajput, have said that securing a conviction will be very, very difficult. Now, one part is that the process is the punishment, all these stars. The manner in which this case is panning out, their image is taking a hit. What do you believe will be the medium-term, long-term reputational consequences for these stars, their brand values, the way public perceives them, and the impact on their careers going forward, Dilip?
You know, this image of an Udta Bollywood, which has been created by the kind of investigations which are going on, is going to dent Bollywood. But the problem is that what was expected and what I think the Narcotics Board is hoping, that it will create a sense of fear and panic among people who are extremely high profile, who tend to lead by example. You know, whether you think that the Karan Johar party looked like a Kumbh Mela of actors and actresses or not, the fact is that this expose and this exposure of this underbelly of Bollywood is something that almost all those who follow Bollywood have been knowing and absorbing for a long time.
No, but will this, in your view, Dilip, impact the decision of audiences to go out and watch the films of any of these stars? Are they really expecting them to be Doodh Ka Dhula, or do you think they'll wash it down and say it makes no difference, I'll just judge the film for whether it's good or bad? Or do you think they'll say, oh, she's smoking up, maybe I don't want to watch her film?
So far, the evidence seems to be that both directors, producers, as well as audiences really only take one thing into account. Did the film do well? Did people enjoy and watch it? And is this a hit? And that, and I don't mean hit in the sense that drugs give you a hit, but essentially film stars and films rise and fall on public opinion. Will public opinion be hit by this? Will people stop seeing an actor or an actress who's found guilty of large-scale consumption of narcotics? My sense is no, because we also have examples from the film industry, and I'm not going to go into names, but there have been prominent people who've had a drug abuse history for a long time, who continue to be in the top league as far as their game is concerned. So whether it is misuse of alcohol, of drugs, or whatever it is, I think that the public, in some senses, sadly, despite the best efforts by various people trying to reform society, tend to turn a blind eye towards this kind of thing as far as the, in inverted commas, the creative professions are concerned. If this was a sports person, I think the attitude towards the person would be different. The brand value would take a bigger hit. But when they are in businesses like Bollywood, I don't think that that's the basis on which their image or their value gets rated.
Okay, so you're making an important point that in the past as well, there have been stars who've been accused and in some cases convicted of substance abuse. It didn't really impact their fortunes on the box office. Their image at this moment, though, is taking a big hit. We've also heard from the former officers at the NCB and the CBI how difficult it is to prove a case of this nature in a court of law. Remember, a television channel is not a court of law. An anchor's opinion is not the last word. It's the judge's opinion that matters. And what we're trying to do at India Today is just report the facts for what they are. We are not judge, jury and execution. We don't pretend to be judge, jury and execution. And we're not trying to tell you what to think. We're laying out the facts that you can come to an informed opinion after listening to perspectives on both sides. I want to thank all our guests for joining us. We're slipping into a very quick break. What I'm saying isn't radical. It may sound radical in the polarized times that we live in, but it's the very basic that we need to do as journalists, which is what we're attempting to do here on the Newstrack. We're slipping into a break. When we come back, I'll have more for you. Stay back. We're back in. Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kanwal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.